Continuous warnings echoed across Beijing and the surrounding mountain villages from September 23rd to 25th, 2025. Alarm bells and sirens blared incessantly, creating a chaotic atmosphere and urging residents to evacuate immediately. From the city center to highland villages, the sirens never stopped, pushing people to move away from dangerous areas before the floodwaters arrived. In western and northern districts such as Manugu, Fangshan, Hao, and Chongping, the Moon River and its tributaries turned into raging torrents. Bridges and overpasses were almost instantly destroyed under the force of the floodwaters. Many long-standing bridges collapsed entirely, plunging into muddy waters. Stone and steel structures that had stood for decades were torn apart. In the mountain villages, entire homes perched on hillsides vanished, swept away by mud flows and flash floods. Winding hillside roads were shattered. Asphalt peeled off like paper. Landslides caused by saturated soil severed the connections between villages and the city. Many cars and trucks were submerged, swept away, or trapped under rubble. Images from Manugu and Moon showed vehicles half submerged in brown, churning waters. Some overturned, while others piled on top of each other, creating chaotic heaps of debris. Across the vast hills, over 242 bridges were damaged or destroyed, and more than 24,000 homes were left in ruins, according to preliminary reports from the city's deputy mayor. Although the exact number of casualties remained unclear, authorities had evacuated over 1 million residents. This represented an unprecedented mass evacuation for Beijing, spanning bustling urban areas to remote mountain villages, all relocated to safety before the floodwaters rose. Major evacuation routes were congested with moving vehicles, buses, trucks, and private cars jammed on flooded roads, their headlights shining in the pouring rain. Temporary shelters were set up in stadiums, schools, and municipal halls, previously bustling places now empty. The large-scale evacuation was key to preventing fatalities, but the psychological toll and infrastructure damage were immense. Water flowing down from the high mountain ranges surged into narrow gorges and creeks, carrying destructive power. Torrents swept down hillsides, carving new channels, uprooting trees, and destroying foundations. In remote areas, power outages and communication failures were widespread. Entire villages were cut off, power lines were down, bridges gone, and roads destroyed. Rescue operations depended on helicopters and temporary teams navigating on foot through muddy, treacherous terrain. Heavy rainfall was forecast to continue into the latter half of the week, keeping the crisis in a state of ongoing emergency. Authorities warned that additional evacuations might be necessary, especially in mountain areas prone to landslides if the rain did not relent. What began as a cascade of warning bells on September 23rd had turned into a full-scale hydrological nightmare by September 25th. Floodwaters swept through the mountain districts and urban outskirts. Over 1 million people were forced to leave their homes to avoid rising waters. Yet devastation continued. Bridges were destroyed, homes collapsed, vehicles were submerged, and vital transportation routes were disrupted. The heavy rain was expected to intensify, putting Beijing and surrounding highlands at risk of even greater disaster. The mass evacuation minimized casualties, but the psychological and infrastructure impacts were significant. Residents need to continue following evacuation instructions, monitor weather updates regularly, and remain vigilant against flooding and landslides. If you found this information useful, please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Hitting the notification bell will ensure you never miss accurate, calm, and clear weather updates. Some footage in the video may be illustrative and may not reflect the exact events described. Stay informed and stay safe.
DP Ayun tak ada, DP Ayun hilang. DP Ayun tak ada, DP Ayun tak ada lah. Tinggal DP Ayun saja, DP biar.
TPO, the city of Shanghai, China, has evacuated more than 280,000 residents ahead of Typhoon Komai's landfall. At the same time, China's coastline faced a potential tsunami threat triggered by a powerful offshore earthquake in Russia's Far East, about 4,000 kilometers away from Shanghai. Typhoon Komai made landfall in the port city of Zhoushan, Zhejiang Province, early on July 30th, continuing to sweep through eastern China. Shortly after, China's coastal regions were put on tsunami alert following a strong earthquake that struck off the coast of Russia's Far East. Although Typhoon Komai's wind speeds were not extremely strong, Shanghai and other cities in the Yangtze River Delta took no chances. At least 640 flights were expected to be canceled at Shanghai's two main airports on July 30th. All ferry services in the city were suspended. Drivers were instructed to keep their speed under 60 km/h on highways. Shanghai's Disneyland and Legoland parks remained open. However, several rides and shows at Legoland were canceled due to adverse weather conditions. Numerous flights at airports in Ningbo, Wenzhou, and Hangzhou were either canceled or rerouted. Some train services in the region were temporarily suspended, while others operated at reduced speeds. Shanghai rarely experiences the direct impact of powerful typhoons. However, Typhoon Koumei struck China at the same time that Russia was hit by a massive offshore earthquake measuring 8.8 magnitude near Kamchatka, about 4,000 kilometers from Shanghai. The National Marine Environmental Forecasting Center of China stated that the tsunami is expected to have a strong impact on parts of China's coastline, including Shanghai and Zhoushan. The Ministry of Natural Resources also issued a tsunami warning for these two cities, where waves up to 1 meter high could hit by early evening. Powerful winds and torrential rains brought by Typhoon Koumei have unleashed devastating floods across parts of eastern China, leaving cities and rural areas struggling to cope with the disaster. Shanghai was one of the hardest-hit cities as the typhoon made landfall with immense force, unleashing relentless downpours and fierce gusts that overwhelmed local drainage systems. Streets in multiple districts were quickly submerged under rising waters, causing chaos for residents and traffic alike. Authorities responded swiftly, organizing mass evacuations from coastal zones and low-lying neighborhoods to safeguard lives. Public transportation services, including ferries, subways, and flights, were suspended for safety reasons as conditions worsened. In areas such as Pudong and Minhang, roads turned into raging rivers within just a few hours, forcing many drivers to abandon their vehicles as water levels rose unpredictably. The typhoon's powerful winds uprooted trees, damaged streetlights, and scattered debris, creating dangerous hazards throughout the city. Emergency shelters were rapidly established to house tens of thousands of residents displaced from their homes. The impact of Typhoon Koumei was not limited to Shanghai. Neighboring provinces like Zhejiang were also ravaged by widespread flooding. Swollen rivers breached their banks, triggering additional evacuations and submerging entire towns. In Guizhou province, bridges collapsed and rural roads vanished under torrents of water, isolating many communities. Schools in high-risk flood zones were swiftly evacuated, with rescue teams using boats to transport children and families to safety. First responders deployed inflatable crafts to reach neighborhoods completely cut off by floodwaters. In the outskirts of Beijing, particularly in the northern regions, flash floods disrupted access to several small towns, leaving rescue crews struggling to reach those in need. Power outages and collapsed roadways further complicated emergency operations. Major infrastructure, including bridges and highways, suffered extensive damage, with repairs expected to take weeks or longer. Emergency alerts were issued across multiple provinces, urging citizens to remain indoors, stock up on essential supplies, and avoid unnecessary travel. Media coverage captured dramatic scenes of rising waters swallowing homes, stranded families waiting for help, and rescue teams working tirelessly around the clock. In mountainous areas, landslides triggered by waterlogged soil added another layer of danger, cutting off escape routes. In Hebei province, authorities rushed to relocate entire rural communities before nightfall to minimize casualties. Experts have linked the increasing intensity and frequency of such storms to broader climate change patterns affecting the region. As floodwaters slowly recede, recovery crews are clearing massive amounts of debris, restoring power to affected areas, and working to reopen blocked roads. This channel provides independent reporting based on publicly accessible information and verified news sources. We are not affiliated with any official organization, and some video footage is illustrative to provide context for viewers.
We sincerely thank you for taking the time to follow our report. Nature always holds both majestic beauty and the relentless challenges, and sharing information in a timely manner helps us better understand and prepare for every change. We hope you will continue to stay attentive, share, and join us in our upcoming programs. We wish you and your family peace, health, and safety in the face of any transformation of the climate and nature. We will meet you again in our next report.